Talking about cheap taglines, a woman who excels at them and is one of the leading Democrats, Nancy Pelosi. My goodness, let's have a listen to the Speaker of the House.
But they know that we can't go there. Putin is trying to bait the trap so that we go in, and that's the beginning, could be the beginning of World War III. Putin totally irresponsible, using weapons that are not allowed under the Geneva Convention. Putin, who threatens use of chemical weapons, nuclear, and the rest. So they know that we can't, but it's the ask. Now, he was this morning more. If we can't have a no-fly zone, let us have our own.
Now, we've all noted Biden's cognitive decline, but what in God's name is happening with Nancy?
It's no better, is it, Rita? It's really worrying. American politics is a sort of strange gerontocracy. In both parties, it has to be said. I mean, in most countries, by the way, in recent years, certainly countries like France, Germany, Britain, and I think Australia to an extent, we've sort of fetishized young people in politics. Everyone always wants a fresh face. And, of course, sometimes a fresh face has something to be said for it, but, of course, experience has something to be said for it as well. So you could say that some countries went a bit too far into the sort of, let's have a fresh face, new face. Canada, for instance. Not that that Justin Trudeau could be said to be that fresh or new, but there are a lot of countries that have went that way. America has not. America has decided that you really can't be anything in public office unless you're turning 80. The octogenarian class still runs America, and as we saw in Nancy Pelosi again this week, it has some very weird effects. We know the tendency of Joe Biden to lose his train of thought. We know the tendency of Donald Trump to sometimes lose his train of thought as well. But Nancy Pelosi is an absolute world leader in it, and of completely bizarre behaviour. And yes, I wrote about this week because the latest one was for all Pelosi watchers. We watch her eagerly at all major events. You might remember last year when the man who killed the policeman who killed George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, was sentenced. Nancy Pelosi came out on the steps in Washington and with members of the Black Caucus of the Democrat Party, and fully masked, Nancy Pelosi looked up at the sky and she said, "Thank you, George Floyd. Thank you for sacrificing your life for justice." Which was such a weird thing to say, as if George Floyd set out that morning hoping to do something really great for his country. It was so strange, but so typically strange for Nancy Pelosi. You'll remember at the State of the Union address the other day, she sat behind Joe Biden, and at one point, she was so ecstatic and so keen to do standing ovations, although she's not very good at them, I'm afraid, poor thing, as she gets older. At one point, she threw herself up so fast she almost fell over the podium and had to sort of steady herself. And then there was she did this weird knuckle rubbing like a girl on Christmas morning about to get presents. And she did this and got up and grinned manically. And Joe Biden was talking about burn pits. And she didn't at all stop the old knuckle-rubbing, happy girl on Christmas morning thing. She just sat down, still rubbing away. And then this week we had the great thing of her reading of the latest work by Bono. She announced on St. Patrick's Day that she had a message to read from Bono, which you know, Rita, is one of the most fateful phrases in the English language. When somebody says they've got a message from Bono, you've got to stop. You've got to get clear out. And it was worse. She said she had a poem from Bono. And she read this interminable poem about St. Patrick and the snakes, and then and finished with an attempt to rhyme something with Zelensky that didn't really work. But she did all of this as if reading the poem by Bono was going to solve the war in Ukraine, apart from anything else. Anyhow, it was typically strange behaviour from Nancy Pelosi, and I hope people notice it, because it's very worrying that the world's most powerful nation, it seems at all of the top levels to be run by people who seem strange, if nothing worse.